Pick your season or occupation. It's time to send in your application.
Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I thought it would be fun, be fresh, to have a little talk about CeCe. I recently did a kind of deep dive into all of the Pretty Little Liars A reveals. I pictured in my mind for some reason that I was really against CeCe being A, but when I was researching it more and kind of remembering everything that happened, I kind of think CeCe's A was a bit underrated. And hear me out, I don't necessarily think that it is CeCe being A that is the issue for people. I think the reason why people are not on board with CeCe being A is because the writing around it is really, really bad. There's a lot of plot holes, and the timeline of CeCe being A doesn't really make that much sense. And I think that's the issue that we have with CeCe being A. But I feel like CeCe in general, her A was low-key the best A. And this is talking about A and A's methods, not necessarily kind of the reveal and the writing around the reveal. But let's dive into it. Let's talk about it, because I think it's a really interesting topic. Like I said, I think the main issue is ultimately the writing around CeCe's A. I think the reveal was really good, the way the reveal was done. I think CeCe's A and how they were A, if that makes sense, was really, really good. And probably the best A that we've had, because the staple that CeCe's A had on the show was really, really good. I really do think it's just the messy writing, and ultimately parts of the reveal for me kind of just felt like thrown in there because they have to do something to solve this certain story or whatever. And I truly believe that CeCe was not supposed to be A. I do think it was supposed to be Ren. I do believe the rumors that they did have to change it last minute. So yeah, I think what was really significant with CeCe's A for me was like the introduction of really symbolic characters on the show, i.e. Redcoat and the Black Widow. Redcoat was such a symbol in the show, and whenever you saw that jacket, it was like, ooh, okay, like this was like really good and such a mystery for the show, because was it Allison? Was it A? Was it someone working with A? Was it Bethany? Was it Sarah? We really didn't know who this person was, and significance of this red coat, a specific red, a specific design, it was just such a staple for the show. Same with the Black Widow. Whether you like the people who was Redcoat or Black Widow, spoiler, I don't. These symbols were so significant for the show. Who are these people? Are they working with A? And I think they really added to the mystery of the show and overall really kind of kept you on your toes. I remember at the time when the whole Black Widow thing was going down, everyone was like, oh, it's Melissa. And it was a whole guessing game. It's Arya. And I think that was really cool to have your audience kind of come along and like try and guess, who are these people and do we need to be scared of them? I think that introduction of all those things with CeCe's A was really good and just added so much more to the show. Especially because for Redcoat, it was very specific as well, because Redcoat would have blonde hair. So it's like, it must be Allison. It could be CeCe. It could be anyone. So whenever we would see this flash of blonde hair and a red jacket, it was like, oh my God. Do you know what I mean? I think Black Widow first showing up to Wilden's funeral, that was a bit of a gag. That was like a real like, oh, who is this? Like, and then Black Widow getting in the car afterwards and Sarah, who is the Black Widow, turning and it's CeCe who's A. just to check the Wilden's dead. Yeah. That was a moment. I fear it was a moment. I think the introduction of these characters really kind of, for me, set like, this is Pretty Little Liars. Post kind of, you know, post the 5-year time jump and like the new season and stuff, I didn't really recognize Pretty Little Liars for what it was anymore. There was some good things with like Alex Drake doing the board game and stuff like that. I think we were really missing kind of key symbolic stuff like the Red Coat and Black Widow and stuff like that. Like, this is Pretty Little Liars to me. This is like what the show is. It's a whole bunch of mystery. Who is this person? Keep the audience on their toes guessing. I think that was really key. I really think CeCe's A just ultimately added this fear within the show, and this was the only A where I felt like characters were like actually in danger. And like some of the actions that CeCe's A would do, like she dug up Alison's remains and then planted them on the Halloween train, and then the Halloween train fell down and exposed all of the remains. Hello? That's crazy. Like, that was like something. And then also using these remains as like making a necklace out of the teeth in the remains. Like, that's like scary stuff. But like, it's kind of really cool. Really cool and really like, wow. Like, this A meant business. Like, this A was doing something. Do you know what I mean? Wow. That was like one for the history books, actually. That entire Halloween episode, that was lucky the best episode on the show. Also, kind of like adding to the symbolic thing of like Red Coat and Black Widow, Big A would have these masks which were like identical to Alison's face. And it was really cool because multiple people had these masks. And it was so weird because I knew what these masks looked like, but whenever the mask got revealed, like, it's kind of a jump scare. It's like, oh, okay. It was quite intense. And to have these masks, like, because Alison was such a big mystery on the show, and obviously the whole story was like, where's Alison? What happened the night she disappeared? To have these masks continuously haunting the liars, so cool. So cool. Like, because before it got revealed, like, where these masks came from and how they were made, there was this whole mystery of like, where are they getting this from? Like, how is this possible? And I think it's a staple for like, Alison's always there. The mystery is always there. And like, the fear that Alison radiated will always be there, but in like the form of something else. I think that is so cool and like such a good idea. And I think there's one scene where you see like the mask burning or something like that, or like the mask is burned. How symbolic. Like, that's crazy. I loved that addition. Like I said before, this was like the A where I felt like the liars could actually potentially be in danger. There's one scene where Emily is like locked in a box and she's on a conveyor belt, and there's like this saw and it's like gonna saw her in half. Like, that was like scary. That was like, I think, a true precedent for the liars that this A means business. And although Mona is my favorite A because she's my favorite character throughout the entire show, I think this was my favorite A in terms of like the methods that this A used, because this A just radiated pure fear. Like with Mona's A, I don't really think it was ever fear, and I think it was more like mystery. Like, who is this person? Why are they after us? You know, they want to spill our secrets and stuff. But with CeCe's A, it was like, okay, burying up bodies, putting lives at risk. Like, it was like such a contrast, and this A really, really meant business. I think having CeCe as A was also just like really adding to like the mystery, and also kind of like the obvious being there, as in like CeCe would always try and make the girls look for other suspects. And for example, like, she told Emily that Paige and Alison hated hated each other and never got on with each other because Alison was really mean to her. So then that made Emily look at Paige, being like, did Paige kill Alison? So I think that was really cool in terms of like, that was like right in our faces, and we didn't see that. She would often do that with a lot of characters, just kind of urging characters to look at other suspects. I think that's a really clever way of urging people to like, it's not me, and kind of pushing that away. Talking about obvious, we saw CeCe in the Black Hood. We saw her as A, listening in Ezra's apartment. We saw it. It was right in front of our faces. At first, when I first watched this finale years ago, I was like, oh my god, why would they do that? Like, they literally showed us that she was A. But now I think about it, I think it's really clever, because showing us her in the Black Hood around the same time that the A team was being revealed, you know, Toby, Lucas, Caleb, whatever, it actually kind of makes us push away from her being A, because it's like, why would the writers show us A? Do you know what I mean? So it kind of pushed the audience away from the idea that CeCe could be A. So we don't really suspect her anymore. And obviously she was Redcoat as well. So I think we as an audience assumed that, well, if she's Redcoat, she's not going to be A as well, is she? So although it's obvious, like it's thrown in our faces, CeCe's in the Black Hood, everyone, it actually makes it a bit less obvious once you get to the A reveal, because you push away from the idea that CeCe could be A. I think one of my favourite times during the show was around the time of Mona's murder and the whole dollhouse thing. And I think this is ultimate Pretty Little Liars. And I don't think anything will ever top this period of Pretty Little Liars. This was ultimate peak Pretty Little Liars. So the whole thing where she murdered Mona, but then framed Alison for the murder, so sickening, and I love it. The whole mystery, I think the audience was heartbroken because Mona is one of the best characters on the show, yet she had been murdered. To frame Alison for it due to cameras picking up the blonde hair in Mona's house, so cool, so cool, especially because this is the time where Alison kind of came back, and there was this whole thing of like, she wanted this redemption arc, but are people gonna forgive her or not? So for then her to be framed as Mona's murderer by CeCe, just because like they have the same blonde hair and stuff like that, is really, really cool. And I really enjoyed this period of the show, the whole Mona is dead mystery. I was heartbroken when she died. I loved Mona. She's honestly my favorite character in the show. So to have the whole mystery of like, do we actually think it's Alison, or was it A? And if it was A, why is A trying to frame Alison for it? And I really think this also kind of pushes away the idea that CeCe was A, because why would CeCe want to frame Alison for the murder? So weird, right? But then we move on to the dollhouse, and the dollhouse ultimately was my favorite episode throughout the entire show. And if I'm being so nitpicky about it, I really think they should have played the dollhouse out a bit longer. I think we only had like an episode and a half of the dollhouse or something like that. I really wish we had something more, because the dollhouse was such a good idea for the show, and it was such a peak time on the show, and honestly it was the last time that I enjoyed the show. The dollhouse was ultimately a bunker that CeCe built, where she built a dollhouse, and the rooms represented each of the liars' actual bedrooms. Like Spencer's bedroom, she built Spencer's bedroom, she built Alison's bedroom, etc. And she took the girls hostage and used them as dolls in her dollhouse. And I just think this is so cool, because throughout the entire show, even with Mona's A, there's the repetitive use of dolls. The girls are the dolls for A to play with. To build a dollhouse to play with these girls, wow, that is one for the history books, everyone. And that was like peak peak A. And everything around that was just so cool. And also the Charles De Laurentiis thing, like having us try and guess for multiple episodes. We have a name now. We have Charles. Who is Charles? We need to figure out who Charles is. To give us a name and then to have the audience guess for episode after episode, so cool. Added so much mystery to the show, and I really liked it. And I think the whole finding out of Charles's name too, with the like building blocks, so good. So ultimately, I really think CeCe's A, in terms of methods and everything that surrounded the A, made her the best A on the show. Love Mona, love her, best character. And she was the best A in terms of like everything made sense. It was fun, it was fresh, do you know what I mean? But CeCe's A added so much symbolism to the show and so many iconic moments for the show. I just can't get past it. So now we have to talk about, what are the problems? Why did CeCe's reveal and writing as A let down her overall character? Because ultimately she was the master of the game, and everything Mona did she would do 10 times better or bigger. So she was really in control, and she was like peak A of the show for me. I think it was really good because she was like a brand new character who kind of brought the fear and mystery that Alison brought to the show, because CeCe was kind of 2.0 of Alison. When the girls first meet her, it's like, oh, she sounds like Alison, don't you think? And her blonde hair, like she just added that mystery and fear that Alison in flashbacks would give to the show. So what was the problem? What was the problem? The problem necessarily wasn't CeCe being A. I personally think the problem was the actual reveal and how it was done, because the timeline for the show does not make sense with CeCe being A. Don't get this wrong. The transgender story, I think, is such an important story to tell. I think that is so important, and I don't think that should be taken away from CeCe's reveal. However, having your only transgender character be a villain amongst all of the deaths on the show were all of the diverse characters. I think there's an issue there. All of the diverse characters that people really attach themselves to were either villains or killed off the show. So that, I think, is part of the issue. So the ultimate thing was the plot holes in the timeline for her being A. Well, not her being A, but things surrounding her being A. But there's just so many plot holes with CeCe. Like, I have a bunch here, so I'm just going to read from them. CeCe was prom queen at a school that she never attended. That can't be a thing. This was the biggest thing, actually, or one of the biggest things. So, as a child, CeCe... There's a scene with CeCe, Bethany, and Marion, who is Toby's mum. And CeCe, who was Charles back then, was on the roof of Radley, because for some reason they're allowed on the roof. And CeCe was wearing dresses. And CeCe was up there with Bethany. And Marion starts to come on the roof, and CeCe panics. And she's like, Marion can't see me like this. Can't see me in a dress. Like, I'm a boy in a dress. She can't see that. So then Bethany's like, let me take care of it. And bear in mind, they're children at this time. Children, okay? So Bethany ends up actually pushing Marion off the roof of the Radley Hotel. However, later on in the show, there is a flashback of Marion, Toby, and Alison. And Toby and Alison are teenagers. This can't be a thing, because CeCe is older than Alison and Toby. So Marion cannot be alive when these two are teenagers. CeCe then also said Wilden covered up Marion's death and said it was a suicide rather than a murder to protect her. However, Wilden was a child and he was not a police officer at this time. Therefore, he cannot have changed anything to protect CeCe. Then there was the whole thing of the A team and how they really fit into it. Like Paige and Lucas, even like Toby and Caleb. Why are these people working with this A in particular? And how do they all fit into the story? When did they meet this A? Did they know that A was CeCe? So she had a college roommate as well, even though she lived at Radley. So which one is it? Did she live at Radley or did she go to college? Which one is it? Another thing, a huge part of her motive was that she loved Alison, and she heard the girls saying that like they kind of felt more free now that Alison was gone. So therefore that's why she wanted to get back at the girls. But if she loved Alison, why did she frame Alison for Mona's murder? That doesn't make sense with the motive that we are given. On the night that Alison went missing, Jason said that he saw CeCe and Melissa talking, and CeCe was wearing that really ugly yellow top that apparently everyone was wearing that night. However, CeCe just kind of brushes this off, and it's like, no, he must have saw something else, and we are never taken back to that. Was that CeCe talking to Melissa? If not, who was it? If it was Bethany, why would Melissa and Bethany be talking? Because Melissa killed Bethany, or buried her, sorry. But if Melissa knew that Bethany was wearing that outfit, she wouldn't have assumed that Alison was Bethany and tried to help Spencer get away with murder. Do you know what I mean? Another thing is the whole Ren situation. What was the point in Ren being as sketchy as he was? Because he gave CeCe a Radley visitor's pass, even though she lived in Radley. And then this whole time, he's so sketchy. And he says one line, I've got here, sorry. I'll take care of my end. Will you take care of your end? What does that mean? Girl, what does that mean? Ren is so, like, such a waste of a character, I think. Because he was so mysterious. And he was so just always, like, involved. And nothing came of that. To be honest, I do think that Ren was supposed to be A. I really, truly believe that. But I digress. The whole Sarah Harvey thing is really confusing as well. I did a whole video on Sarah Harvey. But the timeline of kidnapping Sarah Harvey to keep in the dollhouse does not make sense, because we are told that CeCe takes Sarah on the day after Labor Day, which is the day after Alison went missing. However, CeCe was confirmed to be in Radley the day after Labor Day. So that couldn't have happened. And also, CeCe took over the game once Mona's reveal had happened. And that wasn't until a year after Alison went missing, so like a year or so after Labor Day. So this could not have been a thing, like, at all. Another thing, Jessica was like angry that CeCe and Alison were wearing the same outfit, yet Jessica was the one who brought the same outfits for both CeCe and Alison. So that made no sense. And lastly, this was the whole thing. Like, I always go back to this because I get so confused by it. Obviously, Mary Drake killed Jessica. But at the time where CeCe finds Jessica's body, CeCe doesn't know this. However, CeCe then buries Jessica's body and sends a video of her doing it to the girls. But she claims that Jessica was always really nice to her and really helped her with her transitioning. So I don't really think that makes sense, personally. So after reading the entire kind of plot holes for the show, I really think that the issue with CeCe's A was not in particularly her being A, and I really just think it's the plot holes and like the unresolved stuff of her reveal that is the main issue for the audience. Because in my eyes, I really truly believe that CeCe's A was the best A on the show. It's not too much competition, I will be honest, because I try to ignore that Alex Drake exists. In my eyes, the show ended after CeCe's reveal, and like that was it. But Mona's A was perfect in terms of like everything made sense, and there was a real motive there, and I just love Mona's character. She's really my favorite on the show. But I think CeCe's A was perfect in terms of what it brought to the show. The symbols in terms of Redcoat and Black Widow, the dollhouse, the whole Mona's murder, and like the ultimate fear that CeCe's A brought to the show. I felt scared for these characters. Like, they were like really, really in trouble. So it's such a shame that the writing around the reveal just really let it down, because I really think CeCe's A could have been really perfect if they had just kind of tried to resolve some things. And like, it's okay if the writers messed up a story here and there, but there are ways to go around it, and there are ways to answer this rather than just kind of skim by it or give a really bad answer to this plot hole. Yeah, that is it for this video. Make sure to like and subscribe. I would love to hear what you think down below. I think this is such an interesting topic, and I'm always speaking about it like multiple times with different people and like on forums and stuff. So I'd love to hear what you guys think about it, or even if you have something negative to say about, negative or positive to say about what I think, please do let me know down below. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.
Pick your season